Rodriguez has over 35 years of experience organizing farm workers, negotiating union contracts, and leading farm workers across the country for fair wages and working conditions. And finally, it is my pleasure to introduce Stephen Colbert. Mr. Colbert is the host and executive producer of the Emmy Award and Peabody Award-winning series on Comedy Central, The Colbert Report. The series won the Peabody Award for Excellence in Broadcasting in 2008 and has garnered a total of 15 Emmy nominations. Mr. Colbert and his writing team have won 2 Emmys for outstanding writing for a variety music or comedy program. He recently traveled to an upstate New York vegetable farm to experience the life of a farm worker through the United Farm Workers Take Our Job initiative, and he has also worked with the farm workers to try and publicize their Take Our Jobs Please campaign in the effort to highlight the shortage that we face. Now, each of you has prepared a written statement, and that statement, those written statements, will be made part of our official record. At this point, we would like you to summarize your statement in about 5 minutes. There are little machines on the table. You can see right now they're green. When 4 minutes is up, they'll turn yellow, and when 5 minutes is up, it'll be red. And at that point, we would like you to conclude, not mid-sentence, but sum up, and so that all of the witnesses can be heard, and also so members of the committee will have an opportunity to ask their questions. Well, first, we will go to you, Dr. Swain, for your testimony.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to testify on this important issue. I speak today on behalf of millions of Americans who would like to see immigration laws vigorously enforced. I contend that America does not have a shortage of agricultural workers. Instead, we have a manufactured crisis by some who would like to ensure a steady supply of cheap labor, and in some cases, labor that bypasses the H-2A and H-2B visa programs. The H-2A program is for agricultural workers. The H-2B program is for non-agricultural, mostly low-skilled workers. Labor economist Philip Martin, who has conducted extensive studies of farm labor in the areas of fruit and vegetable production, has found rising production in crops and stagnant wages for the workers. Meanwhile, the cost of household expenditures on fresh fruits and vegetables has remained constant. If there were labor shortages for agricultural workers, one would expect to find rising wages and more attractive working conditions. One would not expect to find unemployment rates of 10.8% in May and 7.9% in August. These unemployment figures indicate that there are native workers actively seeking employment in the sector that includes agricultural workers, forestry, fishing, and hunting. The majority of agricultural workers have less than a high school education. They work under the most strenuous conditions. Consequently, there is a high turnover rate among these workers. Agricultural workers often leave the farms for other low-wage, low-skilled occupations. There they compete directly with low-skilled Americans for a dwindling supply of low-wage jobs. The UFW's humorous Take Our Jobs initiative entirely, or perhaps deliberately, misses the point. America cannot continue to bring in low-skilled guest workers to compete with the most disadvantaged Americans, the poor whites, the blacks, the legal Hispanics, and the other people that are here legally. Nor can it continue to turn a blind eye to illegal immigration. Often, surplus labor that starts in the fields migrates into other industries. Without surplus labor, employers would be forced to pay higher wages, and many would be forced to improve substandard working conditions. Instead of paying $8 and $9 per hour, employers might be forced to pay $12 or $13. Phil Martin shows that an increase in the wages of farm workers would not substantially increase the average family's food bill. He estimated that the average family's food bill would rise by about $8 a year. The Take Our Jobs initiative misses the fact that in some parts of the country, native workers have successfully worked alongside immigrants. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a businessman from Nashville who ran a one-year experiment in Helena, Arkansas, involving sweet potato planting and harvesting. Mr. Don Kerr of Kerr Industries invested over $250,000 of his own money to help unemployed Americans get jobs in the fields in an area of the country where unemployment is around 40% for African Americans. His experiment involved H-2A workers, the agriculture workers that are here on visas, and native-born blacks who were picked up from a central location. They were transported to the job site. They were provided with bathroom, lunchroom facilities, and a decent wage. Mr. Kerr saw no differences in the quality of the work provided by the native-born black American workers, and he concluded that American workers would do farm work if they have transportation and decent working conditions. Even though he had a program that was providing jobs for unemployed Americans, he could not get state or federal agencies to make an investment in the program. He would like to see an independent farm service company created to stand between the workers and the growers. The agency would hire the workers, provide transportation in air-conditioned buses, bathroom and lunch facilities, and would serve as a buffer between the agriculture workers and the growers. The UFW's Take Our Job initiative has not, in my opinion, has not made a serious effort to recruit American workers. This is a publicity stunt. We need to reform immigration. The rapid influx of cheap labor from foreign countries creates an oversupply of labor that works against the interests of native workers. It depresses their wages, it reduces their opportunities, and it deters employers from investing in native human capital. Compounding these problems, native-born blacks and Hispanics suffer more than any other group. You can just look at their unemployment rates, and it's in my testimony. It's off the chart. This is a disgrace. Congress needs to do something about reforming immigration, and they need to protect the most disadvantaged Americans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swain. We'll turn now to Mr. Glaize for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairwoman Lofgren.
Could you turn on the microphone, please? There's a little button. There you go. Nope, it's still not on. We will.
I am honored to testify today on behalf of the U.S. Apple Association and the Agriculture Coalition for Immigration Reform. My name is Phil Glaize. I'm a third-generation fruit farmer with operations in Shenandoah and Frederick Counties, Virginia, and depending upon the time of year, we employ from 30 to 155 workers. The fact that I appear before you today as a farmer with Arturo Rodriguez, the president of UFW, should send a very powerful message. American farmers and the farm workers have a common problem. Despite continued attempts at automation, apples still need to be manually pruned and hand-picked. The work is physically demanding and a certain amount of skill is necessary. Apples bruise easily, and improper picking will greatly reduce the value of our crop. We need a reliable, skilled, and legal workforce. Today, farmers are choosing between a reliable, skilled, and illegal workforce or a bureaucratic, unreliable H-2A program. Without a thoughtful federal legislative solution, farms will fail. We will export U.S. jobs. We will import our food. Who is doing the work on America's farms? Government statistics tell us that hired farm workers are over 80% foreign-born, and over half of those are unauthorized. Private estimates say that as many as 75% are unauthorized. Only 2% of America's farm workers are coming in through the existing H-2A program. Many believe that native-born workers will harvest America's specialty crops. However, the UFW's Take Our Jobs campaign is only the latest in a series of unsuccessful efforts in good and bad times, in Michigan, in Washington, in California, and elsewhere to recruit Americans into farm jobs. Those of us that are struggling to harvest our crops are not surprised that Take Our Jobs is only producing a handful of workers. It isn't about hourly wages. Farm workers can earn more per hour picking apples than flipping burgers or stocking shelves in a big box store. The average picker on my farm earns $93 for a 9-hour day. The better ones earn more. But like so many agricultural jobs, picking apples is highly seasonal. It is out in the weather. It is demanding. I do have a picking bucket full of apples here. I invite every committee member, please, come down, put it on, understand what it's like to fill that thing 150 times a day and go up and down a ladder. Most in this room would probably argue that our immigration system is broken. Some growers are trying to use the H-2A guest worker program but face huge administrative obstacles and uncertainty. Just last month, apple growers in the Northeast had a near disaster when decisions by the State Department and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services put applications of hundreds of Jamaican workers in jeopardy just days before the grower needed them to start harvest. Members of Congress intervened, and the workers arrived at the last moment. A few more days of inaction could have meant losses estimated at $95 million for the affected growers. From a user standpoint, the H-2A program is a mess. The choice between using the dysfunctional H-2A program or hiring workers whose documents look good but may not be is untenable. In the U.S., we have a short window of a couple months to get about 200 million bushels of apples off the trees. As the apples ripen, there is about a 5-day window to pick them at the proper maturity. Different varieties and strains allow us to manage the harvest timing over the course of 8 to 10 weeks. A delay in the arrival of workers has a domino effect that leads to overripe fruit, fruit on the ground, and financial loss. What is most worrisome to me as a grower is the reality that we could lose a large portion or even a whole crop if willing and able pickers are not available. At harvest time, all but the picking costs have been invested. Our lines of credit are fully utilized. We have a leveraged investment that must be converted to cash. If we lose apples to the ground due to a lack of pickers, we could easily be forced to liquidate part of the farm to pay our lenders. This can happen to me quickly and without warning. 1 year is all it will take. The threat of losing farms and all the jobs dependent upon them is real and worsening in the face of congressional inaction. At least 80,000 acres of high-value vegetable production have left Arizona and California for Mexico. 77% of Texas vegetable producers report scaling back due to labor shortfalls. Florida tomatoes and oranges are moving to Mexico and Brazil. China has requested access to our market for fresh apples, and they already produce over 1/2 the world's apples. If the U.S. apple industry is starved for labor, the Chinese are ready to step in and supply our apples. In the face of a crisis, retrieving lost production will not happen quickly. Specialty crop production is extremely risky. Average profitability doesn't really give a proper return given the risk that we take. For most of us, the reasons we stay in it are not economical. A major life goal for me is to provide jobs for as many people as possible. I am compelled to be able to pass on our farm to someone who will take it. Labor shortages are not going to find me a willing buyer. It's a serious economic problem that Congress has not addressed for far too long. Now is the time. I am extremely supportive of ag jobs legislation. Comprehensive reform may be too politically charged right now. Please focus on ag jobs and get it passed. Thank you.
The gentleman's time has expired. We'll turn now to Mr. Rodriguez.
Good morning. I would like to thank Chairwoman Lofgren, Chairman Conyers, Ranking Member King, and all the members of the committee for holding this hearing and for inviting us. My name is Arturo Rodriguez, and I'm President of the United Farm Workers of America. And joining with me today are 5 farm workers that I'd like to ask them to stand up and then raise their hands when I mention their names. Isabel Rojas has 40 years working in the field. She started at age 12. Rogelio Luna started at age 16, has 46 years working in the fields. Amparo Flores started at 14, 33 years working in the fields. Teresa Serrano, started at 14, working 43 years in the fields. Alfredo Zamora, 17, started working and has 34 years working in the fields. Very proud to be with all of them here today. Today, across America, the harvest season is reaching its peak. More than 1 million men, women, and children are toiling in our nation's fields, producing our fruits and vegetables. And and caring for our livestock.